This video is not intended to encourage or glorify any kind of drug use. The sole purpose of these videos is to educate you on the dangers of what these substances can do to you. Please do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video. I repeat, do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video.
Welcome to the world of Tales from the Trip.
I want to start out by saying that this trip report is a combined experience through my eyes of me, P, and my friend, C. I wanted to share this trip because it may help someone out there who sees the same symptoms in another person who has a bad reaction to MDA. As a side note, I'm fairly experienced with most psychedelics and had taken MDA 3 times previously. My friend C hadn't ever done a psychedelic before this night. It was my birthday, and C and I were at some bars at around 8 p.m. We had a few drinks, and one of my other friends that were there with us told me he had some MDA powder. I decided to buy a gram as I hadn't seen much MDA around my area for a while. C and I decided we didn't want to trip at the bars, so we headed back to my house, cleaned my room, and made it comfortable to flail around in and weighed out the powder. I used a scale to measure around 100 milligrams of the white powder for C and 200 milligrams for me since I was twice her weight and I had taken MDA of higher dosages before. We decided to parachute the dosages since I had snorted it and found it to be extremely harsh, so we tied them up in paper towels and swallowed them with a beer. I would say it was about 9 p.m. at first ingestion. 10 minutes in. Take a few shots of vodka and absinthe with some friends that wandered in the house. C kept her stomach empty. I would say I took in total around 2 shots of 40% vodka and 2 shots of 55% absinthe in a 20-minute period. 30 minutes in. Started to feel something very mild, like the nervousness that I get on any come up of a drug. C doesn't feel anything. An hour in. C is sitting in a chair and I'm laying on the bed, bummed out that nothing was really happening, other than being slightly buzzed from the alcohol, so I thought we had been ripped off. C exclaims that she is completely sober. An hour and 10 minutes in. Something very intense washes over C suddenly. She looks at me as I'm talking to her about going back to the bars, and I can immediately tell she just came up extremely hard. Her eyes are extremely dilated from just 10 minutes ago, and she gets up and starts moving around, dancing a little bit and telling me to get up and dance with her. I'm laughing a bit because I don't think she realized she was really tripping at this point, but I can tell just from the way she's acting that she is coming up, and coming up strong. So we dance for a bit, and I notice I'm feeling slightly off base, nothing too strong, and wondering if the alcohol diluted or somehow lessened the potency of the MDA I parachuted. An hour and a half in, still dancing, C realizes she is tripping and freaks out a little bit because it came on so quickly. I tell her not to worry and that it's normal to feel a confusing rush at the beginning, that it will taper off in a bit and give off into a more relaxed state. This is how my MDA experiences have been, at least. I get antsy since I'm not anywhere close to this level and decide to snort 100 milligrams more of the MDA powder. Looking back on it, I probably railed more like 180 as I eyed it out. An hour and 50 minutes in. I feel like I'm coming up a bit more. I feel a slight giggly feeling and feel very loose, like all my limbs are like jello. C, on the other hand, reports that she's feeling very odd and that her stomach hurts. I asked her what her vision looks like, and she says everything looks like it's shaking uncontrollably and that her stomach hurts, so she lies down and I decide to lay down with her for a bit and try to calm her down. 2.5 hours in. I feel like I have reached whatever low peak I'm going to reach and feel only a slight euphoria and relaxation in my body. Jaw definitely clenched a little bit, lights are brighter, and I feel generally good, even though I'm not tripping that hard. I decide against snorting any more as C is really freaking out now and scaring me because I haven't seen someone trip this hard ever. She now has dropped off from the extreme hyper come up that is natural with MDA in my experience. I could tell she is having a hard time by just the look in her eyes. Extremely confused, eye twitches, and more or less unresponsive, no emotion whatsoever, and how she's moving around. It's like her brain was seeing and processing everything so quickly that it produced that outwardly opposite effect. She couldn't stand upright very well without my help, and when she moved, it was extremely slow. She reports that she can't feel anything anymore. I'm freaking out a bit because she's starting to nod off. I immediately decide that I need to keep her awake and sentient, get her water, and take her to the bathroom. She's obviously not in a good state. 3 hours in. After 30 minutes of going through the motions of making sure she knows where she is, who she is, etc., making sure she's breathing, and making sure she stays awake, she suddenly snaps out of it for about 5 minutes, telling me that she can't think and that she thinks she's dying. I try to reassure her that everything will be fine and that she's just having a bad reaction. I tell her that she might go back to feeling that intense and try to console her that I'll be there to take care of her. 4 hours in. Same as before, she snaps out of it very briefly a few more times, but the rest of the time she is in the same state of delirium. I feel completely sober. 5 hours in. C finally starts coming down and rarely goes back to feeling delirious. I'm glad that she is finally coming out of it, as I said she would, and try to talk her through what she just experienced. She said the whole time she just felt like she was dying, as if there was no point to staying alive anymore, which is why she was trying to nod off. 5.5 hours in. We are watching a film to come down to, and we start both having some muscle spasms. Mine aren't bad and located only in my leg. C's, on the other hand, are actually frightening to watch. She will be laying down completely still, and all of a sudden her entire body will spasm, legs and arms flailing, head turning erratically from side to side for no more than 2 seconds at a time. This happens every 20 seconds to 1 minute. I have to literally hold her so she doesn't hurt herself in between. When she stands up to go somewhere, I have to hold on to her so that she doesn't spasm and fall over mid-walk. 7.5 hours in. Her spasms are finally dying down, but they still happen every so often. I'm extremely tired at this point and have to work in 4 hours, so I decide it's okay for me to go to sleep and that C will be fine. She's told me repeatedly to not worry about her and to go to sleep, but the muscle spasms are so spooky I stayed awake with her until she could. 9 hours in. I fell asleep somewhere along the line and slept restlessly. C reported that she couldn't sleep because she still got an occasional spasm. She reports that she's completely at base level now, but the muscle spasms continue to a lesser extent until I leave for work a couple hours later. I would have really enjoyed this experience if it weren't for the fact that I was scared so much for C. I've never seen someone react like that to what I consider a smaller dose, and it didn't help that I was high. I'm glad I wasn't on her level after all, and I'm surprised I wasn't after around 400 milligrams. Watching her start to doze off and tell me that she would be okay dying right now. Even when she came down, she had ghastly muscle spasms. I think the ultimate lesson I learned from this trip is that A, no matter how much I consider a common dose, some people are extremely sensitive to specific drugs, and B, even though it was frightening for me to watch, I knew in the back of my mind that everything was going to settle down for her, and nothing was going to be permanent like it is so easy to think when you are on harder drugs. It was a level head and that mindset that kept me from freaking out too much, and kept the situation under control. This is what I've been trying to preach to people for all this time. Everyone is different. Not every person can do the same dose and be fine, just like this person was. Hey, you could take a lower dose and still be out of control, you never know. For me personally, with weed, with one hit of weed, I feel like I'm gonna die because it's just instant panic, instant paranoia. But other people, one hit of weed will do nothing at all. So it just depends on each person and how you are. You can never underestimate what a drug can do to you, because they are very serious mind-altering substances, especially harder ones like this one. So just stay safe out there, guys. I just want to preach harm reduction here. You never know what can happen. You really never know. Muscle spasms and shit like that, that's scary to think about, especially if you were high as well, because that'll affect your trip too. So Just want to get that point across here, guys. All right, have a safe one, and, touch grass.